Yes, boys and girls, we're testing bass speakers today. Finally, bass speakers. Amazing, right? And we're gonna do that with a clanky, great sounding Dängle metal and rock bass tone. Amazing. I got 4 10-inch bass speakers here from Jensen, Eminence and Celestion. And I've put them into my TC 4x10 cab and we're gonna check them out. I'm gonna walk you through those speakers as usual. We're gonna listen without a horn and combined with a horn. And we're gonna listen to this beautiful setup and we're gonna listen to some plugins. Later in this video there will be some A-B comparisons in a mix and soloed. It's gonna be nothing but fantastic, so let's get started. We all know nobody is doing bass speaker videos. Like everybody's doing V30 videos. Boring, you know? And nobody is doing bass impulse responses. Why is nobody doing bass impulse responses? I will do that, by the way. I will capture impulses of all those speakers. Today we're testing 4 speakers, but there will be more. I just can't put more than 4 speakers in a 4x10 cabinet. Do the math. So there will be at least one more video and I will be capturing impulses of all those speakers and then we see what we're gonna do, right? So stay tuned. But the question was, why no IRs? Why no videos? The simple answer is, it's sad but true, the simple answer is bass speakers are not as important as guitar speakers. I'm sorry, but that's true. A guitar speaker will determine the frequency spectrum of your guitar tone, and especially if you play high gain tones, it will turn the pink noise that is coming from your high gain amp into something we call guitar tone. If you have ever listened to a high gain guitar tone without a speaker, I'm sure you have in a plugin or elsewhere, it's terrible. So we need that speaker to shape our guitar tone. And the more gain you add, the more important the speaker becomes. With bass tones, it's a little different. First of all, bass doesn't have that much highs, right? We have some clanky attack from slaps or from the pick, but that's all we could call highs, you know? Especially if you don't add a lot of clank and distortion. And distortion, you know, means overtones, higher frequencies. If you don't do that, you can get away even with using no cabinet, no speaker at all. Because a speaker is basically, also a guitar speaker, putting a low pass filter, a high cut on your tone. So if you don't need that high cut, you don't need a speaker. But on the other hand, the more clanky, the more distorted, and we're doing metal here, your bass tone gets, the more you need a speaker, because it just helps that clanky, distorted metal bass tone to sit right in a mix. A good speaker will tame the harsh frequencies and make it sound nice. And still, we have learned those bass speakers sound a lot more hi-fi, a lot more full range than a guitar speaker. So still, even if you need a bass speaker, it will do a lot less than your typical guitar speaker. And that's why people think bass speakers are boring. But I'm here to change that today. So let's test out those 4 speakers and see what happens. I'm playing a cool rig today. Once again, I'm playing this Esch Sovereign bass. And we're going into what I call a classic modern rig. So there's a DarkGlass B7K pedal, which is, by the way, turned off now, bypassed. We will use it later. And we have this awesome amp from, I think, the 90s. This is a Trace Elliot amp, a classic amp. Classic Trace Elliot green, looks beautiful. I've talked about this amp and there were a few comments. By the way, I can recommend all those old Trace Elliott amps. They all sound the same. They all sound cool. I don't know how the new ones sound. So hello Trace Elliott. If you're watching, you can send one. I will check it out. The thing about Trace Elliott was, you know, it's a pretty clean sound. And there's no distortion at all. There's no Ampeg bass growl in the mids or something. If you just plug in your bass, it kind of sounds a little flat. Maybe a little boring, but you know, the magic of a Trace Elliott amp lies in the shape function. The shape function. Who plays a Trace Elliott amp without the shape function? Let me turn it on. And that is shape 1. I don't care for shape 2. Shape 1 is gold. Without adding distortion, it makes the whole bass tone more clanky. It removes all the woody mids that we don't want in rock and metal. And now, if we also add the graphic EQ, have a listen. Aha. That is the beautiful, clanky Trace Elliott tone. So far away from anything Ampeg, and also far away from the high gain tones, the modern high gain tones. For example, coming from DarkGlass. Just a clanky piano wire like bass tone. Get a used Trace Elliott amp or a new one. I don't know how they are. But I got that one long ago, and I can also tell you that they're indestructible. Is that the right word? And they are freaking loud. This one has 350 watts. I have played tours with this one, big festival stages, you know. This thing is really loud. It's not 350 watts on a Class D amplifier, you know. Kind of reminds me of that Overkill piano wire clank sound. Alright, so let's talk about the cabinet and let's talk about the speakers. You are listening to that TC cab, which sounds great. Also, I can recommend that one. By the way, I will put a lot of links under this video. So with all the gear I'm using in this video, not the vintage amp, but anything else. So if you need something, have a look down there. Yeah, right now we are playing a legendary speaker. A great sounding legendary speaker. For me, that is the V30 of the bass guitar world. And that speaker comes from Eminence. So this is a Eminence Legend, let me look it up, BP102. And I've talked to the guys at Eminence and they say this is the closest you can get to the speakers they put into the Ampeg cabs. Because the ones they put in the Ampeg cabs, I guess only Ampeg can buy them. It's like an OEM product or something. So you cannot buy them, but you can buy those and they're really close. And the cool thing about this speaker is it has that rock and roll growl in the lower mids. It overly sounds really balanced, has enough low end, and it takes any clanky, grindy bass tones really well. Just a balanced, great sounding, all around rock and metal speaker. All speakers are mic'd with SM7Bs from Shure. I also have another mic at the tweeter or at the horn. And this is also mixed in now. Let me just, where's my mouse? If I take out the horn, it sounds like this. But I can still hear some clank there. But I prefer it with a little bit of that horn. So this is one of the tones we will be using. And the other one is more distorted. So let me turn off the graphic EQ again and turn on the distortion. And that speaker really takes the distortion well. So this is our reference, the Eminence Legend BP102. 102. Let's move on to our next speaker. And this one comes from Celestion, from the mighty Celestion, and it's called Pulse 10. Let's turn off the horn first. So that is the Eminence speaker. Let's go to the Celestion. So that sounds very different. A lot darker. This speaker really needs a horn. No highs at all. I tried to mic it even like totally in the middle, makes no difference. It has a very, very solid low end. Like, I think it's the most solid low end of all the speakers today. But it kind of eats up the distortion. I mean, it sounds nice and balanced, but I don't think this is a rock and roll speaker. I like the low end though. Maybe a speaker that can be mixed, you know? Let's go back to the Eminence. Let's test the speakers, compare the speakers with the Trace Elliot alone. So this is the Eminence. And this is the Celestion Pulse. Yeah, so the clank is gone. Sounds a little boring. Let's add the horn, that will make it better. Yeah. That's a lot better. Now we have enough highs, so that worked, but we don't have the growl of the Eminence. Solid low end, sounds very clean. Not bad, but I prefer the Eminence Legend. Let's move on to the next speaker, and this one comes from Italy, from the lovely company Jensen. And this one is called the Jensen Punch. And this is also a traditional speaker, and it sounds like this. I can already tell you I love this speaker. Even more clanky than the Eminence. Maybe a little cleaner. I think the Eminence has a more honky, more pronounced mid-range. Let's go back to the Eminence. Yeah, but the difference is not big. Let's go to the other sound. Because the more distortion you have, the better you hear the difference between the speakers. And I will turn off the horn again. This is the Eminence. Nice. And the Jensen Punch. It's actually just as throaty as the Eminence. More around 1K or something? It's hard to tell. I think this one has a little more highs, but then just below that, the Eminence has a mid push. But they both have that rock and roll bass growl. They both sound balanced. They both really take the distortion well. Two speakers I can recommend. Eminence Legend BP102. I can remember now. And what's the other one? The Jensen Punch. All speakers are an 8 ohm, by the way. I forgot to say that. Only 8 ohm speakers today. So let's test the last speaker, and this one will be quite different because this one is a modern speaker, a neodymium or what you call it speaker, which means it has one of those lightweight modern magnets. That speaker is really light, which makes your life on the road a lot lighter, easier. And yeah, but they, at least in the guitar world, people don't really like neodym speakers. They're not a fan of that. In the bass world, you can see them a lot. I think in the DarkGlass cabs, you also have a neodym speaker from Eminence. I will test that one in the next video, by the way. So this one is coming from Italy as well, coming from Jensen again. This one is the Jensen Smooth, and it sounds like this. Sounds very direct and compact. But you know what I don't like? This one is not taking the distortion well. I can hear that crank, 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 crank around, what is it, 2K? Clang is really hurting my ears. Yes, there can be too much dangle. There can be too much dangle. Or if the dangle is wrong, sometimes you need this much in a mix. So let's wait for the mix examples. But right now, solo, I feel like this speaker is not a rock and roll speaker. Let's go back to the Jensen Punch just to compare this. Oh, and how relaxed this one can take the distortion. Lovely. Back to the Jensen Smooth, which by the way doesn't sound smooth at all. So not good for distortion. Let's try it in the other setting. Oh, much better here. So it works a lot better in this context, but it still has that quank, quank, quank around 2K or something, or 3. And the more dangle or distortion you add, the more annoying this will be. I prefer the Jensen Punch. Yeah, let me just sum it up. The Eminence Legend sounds fucking amazing. The Jensen Punch surprised me. Sounds just as good if you ask me. It's a matter of taste, or you need to check with your amp. Maybe the Eminence sounds a little more traditional, but they're really, really close and they work great in a modern metal or modern rock context. The Celestion is nice and balanced, but it's too dark for my taste. Too dark for rock and metal. You have to go really crazy on the amp to get enough highs, and you absolutely need a horn. But still, good speaker, you know, not bad. And finally, we got that Jensen Smooth Neodym modern speaker, which is very lightweight, but it sounds a little piercing, a little annoying in the upper mids. I think they just haven't voiced it for that kind of music. They didn't expect that German bald guy to dangle, dangle, dangle around with it, I guess. Whatever. That was very interesting, but I have some more speakers waiting in the next video. So, what we're gonna do now is, I will give you some A/B examples, comparisons, so you can hear which speaker you like. For this example, we will go even more high gain, because high gain is fun, you know? So, I'm doing this one in the box with plugins. So this is Mammoth DSP once again, going through those speakers. Actually, it's all in the box. I've already captured those IRs, so they are going through the IRs of those speakers. I will be back hopefully next week or in 2 weeks with another bass video like this. But I still have some time to order other speakers. So I have, what do I have? 2 more Eminence speakers and I think 1 more Celestion speaker. But if there's anything you want to hear, there might be enough time to tell me, alright? And yes, if you're interested in those IRs, I still haven't decided what to do. Maybe we will just put them into an IR pack. Because you remember in my last video 2 weeks ago, I have already captured some IRs of my Ampeg cab, the MPEG speakers. Now I've done this, and again I have captured like the speakers with actually 2 different microphones. I've captured like the vent hole, the ventilation hole, with another IR, so you can mix it in and to ventilate your balls. And then I have the IRs of the horn, so that can be mixed in. I think that could be a pretty powerful IR pack. Let's see what happens. You let me know if that sounds interesting to you. Please subscribe to my email list, so you're not gonna miss any videos. And I'm gonna do another Beer with Kohle video as soon as possible. You've been waiting for much too long. That means that's a video only for my email subscribers. And I'm usually naked and I drink beer. No, I drink beer. I drink beer. Don't promise too much. Yeah, subscribe to this channel, right? I told you last time, subscribe to this channel. Tell your friends and grandma about my videos, about the Dängle, about the speakers, and about everything else. I got a few more videos coming up. In my next Beer with Kohle video, I will tell you all the cool stuff I'm working on, if you're interested. I don't want to annoy you now. Enough blah 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 from my side. Enjoy the AB comparisons. I see you in hell, motherfuckers. Bye bye.